Metaphysical Energy Healing. Chapter 1, Section 5. A Real Eye-Opener. Running and Sensing Qi. That day, Rosalind would demonstrate a series of techniques that I would later come to know as Qigong. There is an old saying, when the Yi arrives, the Qi arrives. We can translate the word Yi, Y-I, to intent, and the word Qi, Q-I, to life force energy. Qigong is the skillful manipulation of Qi. The word gong, G-O-N-G, means skillful manipulation. That day, Rosalind used her intent to manipulate life force energy very skillfully. She was a Qigong master. She had me lie down on the massage table on my back. She stated that she was going to demonstrate one method of, quote, running energy. As she positioned the stool at the base of the table near my feet, with my shoes off, she placed her hands on my ankles. She said that she was going to extend her energy field like two taproots into the ground and pull the earth's energy below her feet up through her body into her abdomen and then move it through the heart chakra and then down through both of her arms and then out her palms. She explained that the energy would move through chakras on the balls of her feet and enter channels that led to an energy processing and pumping area in her abdomen. This would naturally distribute this increased flow of qi into her heart chakra and down through well-known channels to be finally emitted through another chakra in the center of her palms. She was going to teach us this method to use for the testing phase of Dr. Schwartz's experiment. Immediately, I felt a distinct warming and tingling sensation where her hands were touching me. The sensation moved rapidly up my legs and into my abdomen, eventually extending all the way to the top of my head. My entire body began to tingle, and I had the exact same sensation as when Rosalind had altered my mental activity that same morning. This time it was much more intense, and I could easily identify the source. It was coming from her hands. Something seemed to be pulling at the crown of my head. There was a ticklish sensation, like a circle of warmth that drew my attention. It was a very pleasant feeling, and I enjoyed the experience immensely. Over the next few moments, I experienced something like a flow coming from her hands that increased with time. At first, it was just a trickle, and then it built into a flow that was easily appreciated by me. Within a few seconds, it was like a river of warming energy flowing through my body. There was no way that her hands could be moving as rapidly as I felt them on my ankles. They were vibrating at a fantastic rate. I tried to sit up to see what was going on, and my own body vibrated so rapidly that I felt like I was doing involuntary sit-ups at an incredible rate. It was astonishing to me that her hands did not appear to be moving in any way, but I felt them moving, vibrating back and forth at an impossible rate for a human being. In addition, I felt sensations that I had never experienced before in various parts of my body, including the sensation of intense tickling at the top of my head. Several years later, I would experience the same sensations when being treated by some of her advanced students. She also worked with many of the other participants in the conference, doing the same treatment. We all reported and experienced the same sensations. I could not fathom what she was doing. Rosalind had explained that we were all doing this, and that she just had the ability to do it very well. I invite you to imagine that for a moment. She could do it so powerfully. She was doing it with her conscious intent. It was a skillful manipulation of qi energy. I believe that you can do it too. After all, I have now taught it to thousands of people. In some way, she was engaging her conscious intent to directly manipulate something I could not see that produced a physical sensation. I had felt the energy she was running quite distinctly. I recall the first time I felt that warm, buzzy, tingly sensation, and as I write here today, I assure you that nearly everyone can feel it. In a chapter that follows, I will provide the instructions that Rosalind gave us that day so that you too can try to replicate this portion of the experiment for yourself. It will be kind of a test trial in that later I will show you techniques and states of consciousness that will markedly improve your ability to do this. Although I was able to do this on the first try, and there is evidence that other members of the group at Rex Ranch were able to do so as well, you may require further explanation to accomplish this. While she demonstrated the techniques to the other participants, I watched her, but I could not see or detect the energy she was, quote, running at that distance. Years later, I would develop this very valuable skill. As amazing as that demonstration was, Rosalind was about to do something that really blew my mind. One of the participants had low back pain. My training as an osteopathic physician would benefit me, again, as I would become an amusing, quote, foil for Rosalind. She somehow knew that I was an expert at palpation of the bones of the spinal column. I had not told her I was an osteopath. To this day, I do not comprehend why she chose me to monitor the subject of this demonstration. As an osteopathic physician, I treat low back pain on a regular basis, using physical manipulation and force to move body parts and relieve spinal dislocations. Rosalind asked me to monitor this particular individual's fifth lumbar vertebrae, the last spinal column bone just above the sacral bone. The bone was obviously rotated severely to the right. This was a familiar pattern for me, and I commonly treated this with muscle stretches or even with forceful relocation of the joints involved. Rosalind positioned herself at the head of the table while I palpated the low back from below. Within seconds of her starting the treatment, I was amazed as I felt the vertebrae rotate back to midline. It moved at least 1/4 of an inch. I knew it would take an incredible amount of force at such a distance to accomplish this. In fact, I feel it to be impossible with standard, quote, physical forces at that distance. I was amazed again. The patient's back pain was instantaneously relieved. At that point, I had seen 2 instances where the metaphysical, something that could not be seen, affected the physical in a very powerful way. I had become hooked on energy medicine. In a matter of a few hours, I had become a believer. Quote, "The third eye is a gateway to higher consciousness," unquote. Deepak Chopra. Rosalind then asked me to come and stand behind her and place my hands on her brow. She said she was going to do a demonstration of the, quote, third eye. At the time, I had little understanding of what this meant. She said she was going to look around the room with her 6th chakra. This made little sense to me. As I held my fingers on either side of her brow, I felt something like a globe that was rotating back and forth. It felt exactly what I would have felt if an eye was moving in this manner. The sensation was astonishing. I could not imagine what I was feeling. I was startled and quickly removed my hands. The room exploded in laughter at the expression on my face. Following many demonstrations, Rosalind asked us to return to our seats. She then described what we were going to do in terms of learning how to, quote, run energy. What she taught me that day, I am going to teach you. Our experimental group was going to be using, quote, earth energies, gathering a subtle form of energy from the earth through the feet, accumulating it in our bellies, and then emitting it out our palms into our partners. This technique of, quote, running chi or, quote, running energy would become the basic technique that I use in my practice with my patients. It is remarkably simple to do, and almost all the participants there were able to master it without much problem. Almost all of the patients I have taught the technique to have been able to master it as well. Even this simple technique has broad medical application. Later I will give you precise instructions to develop this ability in yourself.